Top 10 catchers for the 2023 fantasy baseball season. This is going to be part one of a two-part series. These are for roto leagues. If you're more of a points league player or a head-to-head player, stick around to the end. We're going to talk about some risers and fallers within this top 10 in points leagues. So starting at the top, we have tier 1. Tier 1 is going to have two players. It's going to be JT Realmuto and Daulton Varsho. Both of these guys could be lumped into the same tier in discussion for the simple fact that both of them are 5-category producers. Realmuto, we saw had a really strong second half, a strong finish of the year. You know he's going to hit towards the top half or the middle of that lineup, and the Phillies have one of the best lineups in baseball. Meanwhile, you have Varsho, who's not even going to play a lot of catcher, and that's why for 2023 he's so valuable, because what he might lack in batting average, what he might lack in counting stats, he's going to make up for it with the fact that he's more likely to get more plate appearances, considering the fact that he's likely to play the field and DH more often than not. Even if he platoons, he's still going to get more games played and more plate appearances as a catcher, and that has a lot of value from the catcher position. Number 3 is Will Smith of the Dodgers. With Smith, you can argue he's in that first tier, but it's the lack of stolen bases that take him out of it for me. And he's not overly strong in batting average. Like, you should expect a solid 260-ish batting average. The power's there, and you know he's going to hit in the middle of a solid order, and he's going to DH to help get some more plate appearances, again, adding to his appeal as a catcher. All it is a lack of stolen bases for Will Smith. The profile's as safe as it gets. The 4-category production is going to be there. That's what puts him at number 3 for me. Solidify him at the top of the second tier. We saw Adley flash. He's a top prospect on a solid team, a team that's actually getting better around him and constantly and continuously growing. You'll notice on this list, I like to bet on upside. There's similar things happening here that we see with Will Smith, and that's why he's right behind Will Smith in the rankings. The only difference is Will Smith has that track record. Adley Rutschman has strong plate discipline and decent power metrics, not to mention good contact rates. You take all of that and you pair that with the fact that he's coming into his own as a player, gets his first full offseason entering as the starter, and I think we get that breakout season here for Adley, and that's why I have him 4th in my catcher ranks. 5th, I put Willson Contreras. There's very few catchers with more power upside, if any, than Willson Contreras, and we saw it flash last year. He hit 20 home runs in under 400 at-bats last year. That's not something you see often from the catcher position. Now he not only goes to a more favorable ballpark, he's going to be hitting in a more favorable lineup spot, probably in the top half of that lineup. And Contreras should play every day between DH and catcher. He should get plenty of at-bats. And we know the power metrics are off the charts, especially for the catcher position. Willson Contreras is a guy that offers you a lot of power potential, good counting stats. The only thing I'm concerned here in this profile is the potential for the batting average to be kind of on the lower side, because he does have swing and miss in his profile. But there is a chance for Contreras to improve on that. He is still in his early 20s and a solid bat. Number 6 is Salvador Perez. He's the one I had a hard time putting below Contreras because, let's be honest, we're hoping Contreras is what Salvador Perez has been. The reason I'm taking Contreras over Salvador Perez here is simple. Salvador Perez is on the wrong side of 30. His power metrics are still there, but that swing and miss is super concerning, especially as players age. That type of profile tends to age poorly as well. He should hit in the middle of the lineup. Melendez is going to catch more. That's going to help keep Salvador Perez healthy as he gets to DH and catch a little less. I'm simply afraid of that approach not aging well. Although ranking him 7th might not show it, Willson Contreras is a guy I really like. The power metrics are off the charts as well. I have 2 concerns here that keep him lower than the other 2. It's health, and it's the fact that he just signed a new deal. And when players sign a new deal, their first year of a decent deal or a big deal, whatever you want to call it, at a new park with a new team, there's adjustments to be made. Often we see them struggle in their first year. So Willson Contreras, his first year with the St. Louis Cardinals, I have concerns of struggles. So there's health concerns paired with the new park, new team, and all that. And we've seen so many players struggle like this. We've seen Machado, Story, the list goes on and on, Harper. So there could be some recency bias with that issue, but it's issue enough and reason enough for me to be concerned and step back from Willson Contreras just a tad this year and putting him 7th in my rankings because of it. Now hear me out. Alejandro Kirk at 8, I understand is probably on the low side. I'm aware I might be too low on him, but it goes back to targeting upside. I just don't see it there. Great batting average, great plate approach. Those are not a question here. It's the power and the fact that he hit 14 home runs last year. Sure, he has the power metrics to possibly hit more. However, it's an approach issue. He doesn't pull the ball much, and when he does pull the ball, he pulls it on the ground. Not to mention the ground ball rate as a whole is an issue. So the ground balls and the all-fields approach, limit the power potential and limit the potential for bigger numbers because of that. So what we have here is a very high floor. It's just I don't see the ceiling here. And honestly, he barely beats out my number 9 guy, which is MJ Melendez. The reason why Melendez is a little lower is because there is a little more question in the approach. He has a little more swing and miss to the game. There's also a lack of track record compared to Kirk, but there's also power upside that Kirk does not have here. Not to mention, if you look at the shift numbers, it's a small sample, but banning the shift could help the batting average and BABIP improve. So if you have a guy with upside at power who could hit the top of the order, because he did lead off at times last year, Melendez has that upside that others don't, and I'm really having a hard time not bumping him up, and I honestly could see myself taking him over Kirk. I just don't have it ranked that way quite yet. Rounding off the top 10 is Sean Murphy. We know he got traded to the Braves. There's a lot to like here. Great lineup, but he's going to be hitting in the bottom half of that lineup. Great power metrics. The dude hit 37 doubles last year, but some of those will turn into home runs. So the 18 home runs should go up, should be at least 20 plus, but we're almost certainly to get less plate appearances. A lot of his appeal was volume. So there's a little give and take here, trading in quantity for quality. And we did see the Braves play 2 catchers multiple times between the DH and catcher spot last year. So there is an opportunity for him to play more than people might expect. Ultimately, there's a lot to like here in the profile. There's a lot of power here and a lot of just solid 4 category production. He feels like a poor man's version of Will Smith in terms of just that profile that could play up very well and just be a solid, safe contributor across 4 categories. For those who stuck around to the end, here's those points leagues, risers, and fallers I promised you. The risers, let's talk about Alejandro Kirk. We mentioned it. Lack of strikeouts. Great plate approach, high batting average. Other than the power being a little on the light side here, he just gives you everything else that a points league values, especially the ones that take away points for strikeouts. He doesn't strike out. It's kind of a win-win there. Now, the guy who rounds out my top 10 also gains value here in Sean Murphy because although he's not going to get those plate appearances, another guy who barely strikes out, we're talking 20% range. So you're not getting strikeouts from him and you're still getting that power production. I like him more than Alejandro Kirk for the fact that he gives you more round trippers. But at the end of the day, these are 2 guys not in the top 5 that could be pushed up closer to that top 5 range in points formats. Now, the fallers are kind of similar, but in the opposite way. You have guys like Salvador Perez who strike out too much. Sure, the power is great, but most points leagues take away points for strikeouts, and he just strikes out too much. There's too much swing and miss, not enough of an on-base profile. You want guys that get on base, you want guys that hit home runs, and you want guys who don't strike out. And Salvador Perez only does one of those 3 things well. So again, you got to know your points leagues formats. Every scoring system is different. Look into the scoring system before you make these decisions and before you decide who's a riser and faller. I'm going based off very generalized scoring formats, and strikeouts are a huge deal in them as well as home runs. If you feel I got something very wrong in my rankings, or if you feel that there's somebody that belongs in my top 10 who isn't, drop the names in the comments. Let's talk about it. But otherwise, like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate it, and we'll talk soon.